G'day, Jim Hart here. Are you in a relationship or were you in a relationship with someone with BPD? And this commenter left a comment on the video I did, BPD relationship or breakup with an undiagnosed BPD. And what if you don't know they have BPD? But you may be recognizing a lot of the patterns. So anyway, this commenter starts off with something that, I'm sorry, it kind of made me laugh. Not that the rest of the comment is funny at all, but the commenter starts off with referring to people with BPD. When these people get drunk, all hell breaks loose. I mean, yeah, but pretty much when anybody gets drunk, there's the potential that all hell breaks loose. So it's not just people with BPD, but okay. As this commenter talks about in their comment, the person that they were with borderline personality disorder was really changeable. Because, like, 1 minute they were really, like, wild and abusive and hurtful and beyond. And they demanded what they wanted no matter what. And they don't see or hear you when they're doing that, people with BPD, especially untreated. And then the commenter was like, just positive, but then, like, it's a wild ride because in the next minute, well, they just, like, super love you. Well, no, this is codependent fantasy. This is people with codependency who have overactive unconscious parts of self, like a wounded inner child, a wounded inner teen, or different ages or stages of a wounded inner child, that is for some reason really resonating, unbeknownst to you, with the chaos and the drama and the eggshells and the impossibility of really connecting to this person with BPD. But that's not going on in your conscious mind. And consciously, as a codependent, you don't realize, and many people don't realize, like, for a long time, long relationship, on and off, the limbo, the back and forth, the keep recycling the relationship. They don't realize until they get into therapy, because therapy is the way, not the 12 steps of codependence, anonymous, or the 12 steps of really anything, unless, somebody has a drinking issue or a drug issue and you need to get some help with that. Then those two kind of 12-step groups, maybe, right? That borderlines often are going to be hypersexual and amazing that way, and that's the intermittent reinforcement they give you. No, not with an agenda, not on purpose. It's part of the borderline push and pull. They're not always consciously aware of what they're doing with every single thing that they do. But make no mistake about it, when you're having all that great physical intimacy, you're having an emotional intimacy, they really can't love you. They don't attach to you. And how do they feel, quote, connected? Often it's through sexuality, but they're not even really fully there and connected, if you know what I mean. Yes, physically they're there, but I've had so many clients tell me, huh, it was great, the physical intimacy and everything, but often, it felt like she wasn't really there, or he might not be really there, and or they were like starting to act like a child, or they were really closed off, but we were having the physical relations. So they don't really connect to you. Borderlines don't know how to connect due to, like, just what borderline personality ostensibly is in the core of it. And so there's that, and then there's the codependent fantasy, illusion based on something that is similar about this borderline, or was about a borderline in your life, that goes back to woundedness in childhood, or something in your family of origin that is dysfunctional, something systemic in your family of origin. Because why do you think you're signing up and believing, like this commenter, oh, it's really wild and it could be really horrible, but then it's really wild because they, quote, super love you again. They can't even, they don't even have the capability of loving you in the first place. Not really. So physical intimacy, yes, but emotional intimacy, no. And what do you have when you have the splitting and the emotional dysregulation, or the cold cutoff of the silent treatment? What do you really have with this person that you feel like you love, who you thought they were, not really who they are, because who they are, they don't even know who they are. You don't know who they are. So who are you actually loving, and why are you thrusting yourself forward through hell and brimstone kind of dramatic, horrible pain and treatment, and being called every name in the book and blamed for everything that they just don't feel good about? And you're trying to make them happy, but they're not happy, and they can't be happy because they don't know who they are. So it's a codependent illusion meets with codependent fantasy, meets with what's going on unconsciously with your wounded inner child, or some wounded inner child and inner teen parts that are unconsciously keeping you stuck in the intermittent reinforcement of the trauma bond, and you keep thinking that despite abuse, oh, they can come back in a minute and quote super love you. But you're not seen, you're not heard, you're not valued. Because for most people, when they talk about this, especially when I'm working with clients, the quote super love, unquote, involves physical intimacy again. The odd time maybe it involves something else as well, but it will be temporary, very fleeting, and it's the intermittent reinforcement that keeps you stuck in the illusion and the fantasy of the trauma bond, because the idea of not being with this person, even if it's an ex and it's been a long time, people are ruminating about this and people don't understand. Why can't I just move on? Why can't I just get over this? It's because the way to do that and the way to heal in therapy, not any 12-step codependent group, is to understand the woundedness of your childhood and what's going on unconsciously, that you're not aware of yet, or lots of people aren't until they work it through in, a healing and recovery process, which I'm out here to work with you in and on if I resonate with you. This idea, like, people with BPD are very changeable. Yes, they are. They're chameleon. They're going to mirror whoever they're with at a certain moment. If they develop a favorite person and you're in a relationship so they don't cheat on you right away, or they don't cheat on you, then they might get a favorite person. Then they might start mirroring the favorite person. They might change their hair color. They might change the way they dress. They might change the music they like. And so they're chameleon like, and they have high changeability with different emotional states. That leads to a lot of devaluation or just a lot of disconnection. But then, like this commenter talks about, well, okay, so bad things happen and it's really painful and I don't understand. But wow, it's wild because then they can come back and quote, super love you, unquote, or super love you again. No, they can't, and no, they don't. And what that is, if there's something positive that happens again and again and again after the negative, the negative, the negative, you're being blamed, you're being hurt, you're being name called, you're having the J justify, defend, and explain, endless hours of conversation. It goes nowhere. You never get any repair. You don't get any closure about any BPD episode and what they do and what they say and how much they hurt you. What are you repeating in repetition compulsions that are unconscious from your woundedness in childhood? That's what you really need to find out to really be able to heal and to really move forward, among some other things. But these people with BPD, and especially untreated or not well enough treated, and by the way, they're not going to age out, and remittance is a tricky subject I'll have more to talk about, because these things don't allow for people with BPD, even if the remitted doesn't mean they're going to be positively healthy in a relationship, and they're not all the same. So if you can relate to this comment, or just even what I'm saying here, you really need to ask yourself, what the heck am I doing? What am I thinking? Then you're trying to over logic and focus on the borderline and understand all about them, but you've already like lost yourself. Parts of yourself in childhood, and now more of yourself if you've been dating, or you're trying to love a person with BPD, or you've been in a relationship on and off for some period of time. It's time to really, unfortunately, it's difficult, but you need to wake up and realize that codependent illusion and fantasy based on the intermittent reinforcement from somebody with BPD after the honeymoon phase is over and the first split to evaluation happens, that's where the relationship starts to rupture. And that's the point from which the beginning is really, but that rupture, that devaluation, that's the point from which there is no return except the cycles of borderline push-pull and this sort of changeability and this idea that if you get back into physical intimacy with them or have 5 good minutes or a good day or a good week, that somehow it's okay now. And it's not, because it's going to always cycle from the sort of base mood place back to the split to devaluation. And unless and until they go to basically like 8 to 16 years worth of therapy in a psychodynamic therapeutic model, not just DBT, they're not going to know who they are, and they're not going to be able to stop the splitting, and they're not going to know what these splitting cycles, and they're not really doing the intermittent reinforcement thing to you on purpose. At least most people with BPD aren't. And so the push-pull, the back forth, the round and around, you're getting so hurt that this is what I think drives so many people with codependency to believe, but she really loves me, but he really loves me because, and they deserve another chance, and this is part of codependent denial, and doesn't everybody deserve to be loved? Well, not when they can't love you back, not when they don't attach, not when they can't connect to you. So there is no going from a devaluation to, wow, super love again. No, that's the intermittent reinforcement causing you codependent illusion and fantasy beliefs based on the beginning that it's been nothing like since for how long, right? And the point is, they can't love, they don't attach, they can't connect. And the love bombing, it's not only in the beginning, it's in the relationship, in the intermittent reinforcement aspects, which is a trauma bond. Because if you believe that you're really loved, or they give you quote super love, even if it's physical relations that are great, well, that's sex. And sex, often with people with BPD, it has nothing to do with love. And most healthy people really want to connect to someone emotionally, physically, have that intimacy on both levels, and feel seen and heard, and have that person be present for you as well. And there's no repair to any BPD episode. So what do you think is driving for you individually? Why are you grasped onto, if you are still, and you might be relationship recycling, you're grasping onto this intermittent reinforcement that likely feels similar if you think about it, but there's a lot of work to do to really get down in there to find out, how did you get wounded in childhood to have this trauma response known as codependency? Because that's what codependency is. And so what happened? What hurt you? What are you repeating? What is a part of you, probably in your unconscious and unknown to you? What is it chasing, and what does it need? And why is it chasing it through somebody with borderline personality disorder in such a wayward way where you're never going to get what you need or what you want? Think about it. And this commenter says, my ex-girlfriend screamed in my face for hours because I wanted to leave a bar at 12 p.m. after a really long day. Maybe they mean 12 a.m. Like, that's what happened. And this person's saying it's his ex-girlfriend. But why do you think, if this still applies to you, or if you're still trying to work your way through this, and I'm out here to work with people that want to heal and recover from these relationships and the codependency, etc., but why do you think you let someone scream in your face for hours, for minutes, for seconds, let alone hours? Is one question that I think might help people to ask themselves. So this is the classic, you're getting what you're getting, and you're wondering about it, and no, you shouldn't be getting abused the way that people with BPD do this. They're responsible for that, but they don't take responsibility. And you keep hanging in there, and this person is talking about an ex, but still focused on that now, right? And for some people, that's happening like a year or two or more after the relationship has ended, and you know it's your ex, But what are you doing to help you out? What are you doing to help you heal? And I'm out here to help people to heal who want to do the work of healing their own codependency and wounded inner child. And then that really helps people to see what they went through with a person with BPD in a whole different light and take responsibility for it, but by focusing on yourself, not the borderline. So then apparently the BPD ex-girlfriend of this commenter said, "You're not fun anymore. I need a fun boyfriend who wants to do things with me. You think you're so high and mighty because you work for blank. Guess what? Everyone worked today. It's Friday. Maybe I should call my ex-boyfriend again because he was fun and would go out with me," unquote. Well, and that would just be a person with BPD manipulating because, sure, maybe her ex was fun, but then what happened? And how come she was then with this next person? Because, and maybe I should call the ex because he was fun. Well, probably not fun at some point, or why wouldn't she still be with him? These relationships don't work out. The commenter says, "I let it go, gave in, and stayed at the bar." So, again, why, if you can relate to this commenter, why do you make these decisions, do you think? What drives them? And you realize that if they're being abusive and you make a decision like this commenter said, "I let it go, gave in, stayed at the bar," well, do you think that's going to change the person with BPD's perspective or their emotional dysregulation or their just plain old negativity, and you can never do anything right enough or good enough for them? Not that you're not doing things that aren't, I don't know about right, wrong, but you're trying to please them, and it just doesn't please them. So yeah, the commenter said, "I let it go and stayed at the bar, only to get home and hear it all over again, 10 times worse, get hit across the face. It's just horrible. It should never happen. I'm sorry," etc. Really bad. These people are wild when they go to super loving, and then they go to super loving the next minute. Well, again, these people with BPD aren't all the same. And some people with codependency can be a little bit wild in their own ways, maybe not the same as a person with BPD. Yeah, and the thing about this sort of like black and white, these people are wild when they go to super loving the next minute. Well, why do you think it's super loving? Because when they show you, like, they're going to yell and scream in your face, they're manipulating you, they're trying to control you, they want you to do what they want you to do, and the heck with you, and they're never worried about your feelings or what's happening for you. And then, so you give in and you make decisions that aren't good for yourself, and I'm not just talking to the commenter, but maybe many people can relate. So then, how come you think it's wild, like they go to super loving the next minute? Because it's not super loving. How can it be loving when 1 minute it's going to be yelling and screaming in your face, in this case, and the next minute it's going to be like loving? What? And the commenter said she could go from thinking I'd cheat on her all the time, criticize the behavior of hers, she would freak out about it, but wouldn't hesitate to put me down. I would be nice about it. Quote, "Babe, it's not a good financial decision to do that. I work in the finance industry. I've worked in finance for the last 15 years. I have to just change the grammar, sorry. I know this stuff inside out. You shouldn't buy this house and use the money for paying down. You should use the money for paying down your loans and medical bills." And that's what I think the commenter said to the BPD girlfriend at the time. She'd come back, quote, "I hate it when you talk to me about money. I'm doing whatever I want. Stop trying to control me." And then, "Oh, you're going to start a fight over this now. That's what you're going to do after we just had a great weekend together." I'm not sure what a great weekend was, but have you had this experience where you think you had a great weekend and now they're going to ruin it because more fighting, more manipulation, more extremely poor treatment, more of what they need? When you try to speak logic to people with untreated BPD, like when the commenter said about, you don't have to even work in the finance industry, no disrespect intended to the commenter, to see how people with BPD often untreated, they're doing all kinds of crazy things with money and impulsive things. And they often don't have a lot of money on account of these types of things. You're just offering them, well, the commenter said, if I criticized her behavior. So yeah, people learn the hard way that if you criticize somebody with BPD, it doesn't work. They'll yell and scream and carry on and do different types of outlandish, outrageous, egregious behavior. What choices might you be making if you can relate to this commenter's experience? What choices are you making that you're continuing to get hurt? And is that in the name of you think they love you? Because the physical relations are so fantastic, and then the next minute they're yelling and screaming at you, and it has to be their way, and it has to be what they want to do. And even if it is, it's not good enough because you did this, you did that, you did the other thing, they'll say, which maybe you didn't do any of those things. So again, it started off with when these people get drunk, all hell breaks loose. Well, it's pretty true of when anybody gets drunk, actually. This is somebody who is just talking about their ex-girlfriend. I would just say that it's really important when it's your ex, and of course you have many experiences and many awful stories, like true things that happen to you. But why the focus on them, and how does that help? And that's the question I keep on asking people to think about, right? And maybe, yes, to talk about some of this in your own therapy healing process. I'm out here to work with people that want to go through that healing and breaking the trauma bond with somebody with BPD or NPD. This commenter's comment is largely focused on, yes, what they experienced, which was coming largely from their BPDX, at the time probably girlfriend. But how is that the most important thing to focus on now when this commenter says this is about his ex-girlfriend? And why do people hang out with them and stay in relationships with them if they have major drinking problem or major substance abuse problems as well? Like, again, not trying to say anything disrespectful to this commenter about what they experienced, but you try to help the person with BPD out, you think, right? Because you're going to point out, well, it's not a very good use of your money to do this instead of that. And then, but they just come back, I hate when you talk about money, I'm doing whatever I want, stop trying to control me, and it starts a fight. And it's like, because you as a codependent are trying to change something about what they're doing, and you really don't have the right to do that. The way these relationships start, you fall in love with somebody who doesn't exist. And nothing's going to change that, because they're still not the person that you thought they were, and they're not ever going to be that person. And so dwelling on, well, maybe the commenter isn't dwelling on this, but maybe. And what they shared here, it's like the answer is, well, and they said it's their ex, but they're obviously still really thinking about their ex or being affected by what happened with the ex, which is understandable. But it's, you got to go no contact, and you got to get into your own healing and recovery process so that you can heal your codependency. You can help out your wounded inner child. You can find out what the repetition compulsion behaviors of codependency for people that keep wanting to try to fix and change people with BPD and have these relationships work, all predicated on who you thought they were when you first met them. Well, in these situations, nobody can know what's happening in the beginning, but the beginning is always going to lead to a very, very predictable, unworkable relationship that will rupture one way or another, maybe multiple times over. But again, you got to start focusing on yourself. And how many people out there have so many clients, and I have had over the last 34 years of working with people that come, and I'm not judging, but maybe it's 2 years, maybe it's 5 years later, they're not seeing the ex anymore, and so they have ended the relationship, or the ex took off and they've never heard from them again. But there's still so many questions and so much focus on the ex and rumination and all kinds of things, longing for an ex, etc. So if you're in any of those situations after like months or a year or 2 years or 3 years, and you're like, well, I'm doing better and everything, but I can't stop thinking about this person. And maybe I'd take them back if they came back, or maybe I'm longing for them. But again, you're longing for who you thought they were, and they're not who you thought they were. And they don't have a self, and they don't know who they are, so you can't know who they are. How do you let go of that? How do you move forward? Well, the answer is it requires therapy. And therapy can make all the difference in the world in you healing yourself and healing from the breakup and breaking the trauma bond and not staying stuck in writing comments on YouTube channels like mine, which is fine. But the more people are doing that about an ex-girlfriend, the more they still haven't broken the trauma bond and are still suffering. And if you can relate to that today, ask yourself, why are you doing that? Because, like, what about you?